All right, so we have gone ahead and we have installed our system using the GUI. We've installed our system using sconfig, and now the last step is to use PowerShell. Now, PowerShell is a somewhat cross-platform environment that allows us to do most every single thing that we need to do in our environment from a command line. Not just from a command line, but we can fully automate everything that we're doing. So we can specify the resolution as I showed previously. We can set the time zone via command line. We can set the network adapter as well as joining it to the domain. So let's see if this works. I went ahead and reset my machine here, and we'll go ahead and log in as as our administrator, and I'm going to go ahead and open up PowerShell and reset our reset our screen resolution to the 1920 by 1024. So the command there is set display resolution. And this is really great. I can hit tab and it automatically completed the command for me. So width 1920, height 1080. Do I want to keep this? Yes. So let's go ahead and change our screen a little bit bigger. Okay, so first thing we need to know is how to get into PowerShell. Well, it's actually pretty simple. What we do, from a command line, we type in PowerShell and just hit enter. Opens up PowerShell. Now we can start running some commands in our environment. First thing we want to do is we want to set the time zone. So there is a command, set-timezone -name. And the name specifically for this time zone is Pacific Standard Time. You can look online specifically for the set time zone command, and there are lists of all of the various time zones that exist out there for you to type in here. So I'll go ahead and hit enter, and no error message back means everything worked fine. Next thing I want to do is I want to set the IP address. So in order to do that, I'm going to run a command called get net adapter. Again, tab complete works great. For instance, here I just type get net add, and then I hit tab, and it fills out the rest of the command. So I hit enter, and it will give me information about all of the adapters that are on my system. Currently, I only have one. I could see, well, it's Ethernet 0, its IF index is 2, and here's the MAC address if I need to look for a specific interface altogether. What I'm looking for here is the IF index, the interface index number, because I can now use that in order to reference that interface as I'm setting the IP adapters. So in order to set the IP address, I want to do a new net IP address. Interface index is going to be number 2, which I just looked at up here. And then the IP address is going to be 192.168.10.55. Subnet mask, we can, instead of typing in the 255.255.255.0, I can actually type in the prefix length, which is a whole lot easier to type. And then lastly, the default gateway, 192.168.10.1, and you can see it wrapped around here to the left, which is perfectly fine. And then I go ahead and hit enter. And we can see, hey, it did in fact take the IP address. It did take the prefix length, and everything is great. Next thing I need to do is set the DNS address as part of the IP configuration. So the command for that, set DNS client server and set DNS client server address. There we go. Again, specify the interface index is number 2, and then the server addresses for the DNS servers 192.168.10.10. And now, just to confirm, what I can do is I can run the command ipconfig. Actually, let's do ipconfig/all. And I can review. Here I have Ethernet adapter 0. I have an IPv4 address. I have a subnet mask. I have a default gateway. And I have my DNS server set. Awesome. So I'm almost done with this configuration. The last step is to join this machine to the domain and rename it. There's a couple of different ways I could do this. There is actually a rename computer command, in which case I can rename the computer, reboot, and then do the add computer command in order to join it to the domain. However, I can also just run the add computer command. My domain name is testlab.local. The name I want to set this computer to is going to be server core 02. And then lastly, it's going to require a restart. So I'm going to give it a restart option and hit enter. It pops up and asks me for credentials to the domain. In order to join this machine to the domain, I have to have domain credentials. So testlab /administrator and his super secret password. And just like that, if all goes well, it should be joining the computer to the domain and then automatically reboot me when it's done. And there we have it. That is our basic Windows Server configuration. That gets our computer from a fresh system install into having a resolution that is usable for most environments. Setting the time zone and date and time so that we can look at the times across the environments and make sure that they're all in sync. We've set the IP adapters for our environments to have IP addresses, as well as configured the DNS servers. And then lastly, we've joined these computers to the domain, all using the GUI, using the sconfig tool, as well as using PowerShell for all of these commands.